Vi ska nu få möta en talare som berättar hur teknologi kan göra känslor mätbara och hur man kan jobba med nya typer av verktyg som förändrar mänskligt beteende till data. So please help me in welcoming from Neuroscience Inc., Mike Storm. Great to have you here.
Can I hear?
You're mic'd
can people
up.
hear me?
You're fine.
Fantastic.
I'll leave the stage to you, and then I'll come up afterwards, see if we have time for questions.
Great, thank you very much. So, thank you everyone. You're quite a few people here. That's awesome. So, I'm here today to talk about neuroscience, to talk about applied neuroscience, to talk about how can we use these measures to understand people and people's behavior. So, the first question is really, are we rational? As people, as human beings, are we rational? Do we make decisions like a well-trained chess player or a poker player without any emotions? Do we think about every next step we take? It's a good question. For example, I can take an example, my girlfriend. If she goes online and shops for clothes, if she needs to get socks, she certainly has a jacket, a pair of shoes, and no money in her bank account. And the question is that rational? Or is something else driving her behavior? And that's pretty much what I'm going to talk about today. But first, I want to show you a little video which kind of tells the story.
As you learned exclusively on this show, Apple unveiled their new iPhone 7 yesterday. It's not coming out until September 16th, but most people don't know that. Most people hear about the announcement and they assume they can just get it right away. So we decided to take advantage of that and of the Apple mania in general. We went out on the street, we asked iPhone users if they wanted to try the new iPhone, the iPhone 7. And when we took their current phone, we cleaned it, we put it in a different case, and we handed the phone right back to them. Told them it was the new one. Do you think we found anyone who believed that? Well, let's find out with this first look at the iPhone 7.
We've gotten some prototypes of the 7, and the great thing about the 7 is it's an instant data transfer, so you can transfer a lot of your settings from your current phone to the 7 and try it out instantly as if it was your own phone.
Oh, cool.
Do you want to take a spin?
Absolutely.
Okay, great. Would you mind giving Patrick your old phone?
Do you need my passcode? Okay.
It will automatically do it. And you said you've had one since the 3?
Oh yeah, probably since I'd say 2011 or 2010, whenever that one came out.
Now this new one is water resistant, right?
Yes.
Now have you ever had anything where you've gotten water on any of your iPhones?
Yes.
What happened?
Dropped it in the toilet.
Dropped it in the toilet?
Yeah.
And did you do the rice thing?
Yes, I did.
Did it work?
Didn't work. No.
Okay. Oh, and we have the new iPhone with all the settings.
Okay. Wait, so this is like all my stuff on it?
This is all your stuff on the new one.
Cool. That's great.
How does it feel?
Thinner.
Thinner?
A little bit.
Does it feel lighter as well?
Yeah, actually, than my 6 Plus, yes.
And you could test to see if all your info has transferred. Has it transferred?
Yeah, I already got a text message from a friend of mine, so yeah.
Oh my God.
Let's see.
So can you just sort of talk to us about the features of the phone? How does it feel? How does it look?
It's a lot smoother. I like it. Feels lighter.
Feels lighter?
Than the other one, yeah.
So what do you think in terms?
Okay, this can go on and on and on. And it's not only on Hollywood Boulevard this works. This might be an extreme. We're putting people into a very certain situation with a camera in their face. But the thing is that as people, we are terrible at reporting how we feel, what we think, or what we're going to do. Our behavior is really difficult to predict and to remember. So that means that what happens here is something called confabulation. Within psychiatry, it's called confabulation, and it means that we build a coherent story from very fragmented memories. So for example, if you had to think of a talk today and you had to memorize exactly how you felt when someone said something specific, that's impossible. You can get a coherent thought about what you thought about the talk or a certain part of the talk, but you can't take that one little thing, pick it out and tell, this is how I felt about it. So that means that something is going on in our mind, which is not only us being these rational chess players. Because we have two different systems. We have one system, which is the one we talk to, the one we ask questions, and the one that we know all of us. And that's the system 2, as Daniel Kahneman wrote in his Thinking Fast and Slow. So system 2 is what we work with if we ask questions only. But something happens before that, which is system 1. And here we have automatic attention, automatic emotions, and automatic cognition. I'm going to talk a little more about that, but I have one video more before we go into it. So, why NeuroSync, or why applied neuroscience? We had one of our clients kind of tell what they use it for and why they do it. So I wanted to bring them up here.
Our brains are information gold mines, packed with information that we have not really tapped into. By using applied neuroscience, now we're at the stage that we actually can do that.
Lowe's Innovation Labs use neuroscience to test every key step of a new technology that they have developed.
How do consumers respond to something that they have not even thought of before? What about a robot in a store? How about 3D printing? How about virtual and augmented reality? Lowe's Innovation Labs and neurons go back to some of the research and the tools that I have used academically for commercial use.
Neurons was born because Carl pushed me to do it.
The EEG headset, I would think of it as kind of a microphone for the noise that's going on in your brain.
We can actually see the different parts of the brain lighting up.
And what this does is it creates experience for understanding what's working and not working.
The combined EEG and eye tracking is a huge deal for market research. We can now understand how people feel in the second they do something. Before we had to try and ask them how they felt, whereas now we can see how they feel.
So we can tell if you'll like it, we can tell if you don't like it, and then we can further optimize in order to make the experience better and more intuitive. And that's why we're investing in applied neuroscience.
Neuroscience allows you to peek into other people's heads, to measure things that they're not able to verbalize very well. We are actually able to understand how the brain responds to human-robot interaction. This is something that nobody has done before. It's absolutely stunning.
Yours wouldn't have existed if it weren't for Lowe's Innovation Labs.
Lowe's Innovation Labs is informing and advancing the way that applied neuroscience works.
They look into disruptive technology in a completely different perspective. Being able to have a technology like this is a game changer.
All right, the reason why I wanted to bring this up is because that's, again, an extreme. We're taking people into virtual reality, a completely new technology, and testing how they feel in there to both embed the virtual reality experience, but also to help people understand how to adapt it. The same goes for if I'm going to a shopping page, e-commerce site or something. It can be super confusing sometimes, and sometimes it really works. But this can really help you understand what works and what doesn't work. So I just wanted to mention why I'm here and what the company really is. We are a combination of a spin-off between 2 academic parts in Denmark and an incubation phase with Lowe's Innovation Labs, as you heard here. And that means that we have many years of experience, actually 12 years of experience with using EEG, fMRI in this kind of area. So this is where we kind of are in the world, and this is where people use neuroscience. They use it to test different cultural differences. Because again, if we bring the same website to Denmark, to Sweden, to Norway, we might be alike, but it's not always the same. And the same goes for different cultures. So what do we use to do this? What kind of equipment can actually help you understand people in another way than we've been able to before? It's an EEG brain scanner, 9 sensors, mobile EEG brain scanner, which means that you can bring it into a store, you could bring it into a normal situation, or you could do it in the living room in their home if it is. And you can actually start understanding the subconscious responses that people have to your purchasing period, that when you go online, to your website, to every part of it, even the new application that we saw earlier from PostNord, which is super exciting, but how will people use that? Is that something that is intuitive? Is it something that works right away? Or are there some boundaries that we kind of have to work with? The other thing is that we use an eye tracking, a pair of eye tracking glasses, Tobii 2 eye tracking glasses. And the next page is really the more interesting one. This is where I can tell you more about what is it that we really use, what is it that we measure. We have 4 key metrics. We have a few more. But again, like if you ask a question, you can get an answer. Let's say from 1 to 7. Here you can get a normative data point that actually tells you comparable between different segments, different groups. Visual attention, tangible, it's the easy one. What are people looking at and what don't they see? Again, you want the key information that you want to send to your customer. You want to be that people see, not anything else. And again, that goes for, let's take Facebook, for example. You have a wall, either on the computer or on your phone, and especially on the computer where you have ads in the side, you have a lot of things that pull attention. Sometimes you might think that your ad brings the attention that it needs, but the thing is the context means everything. If you're on a white page like that, you should bring an ad in there in a certain way, next to if it was on a website which is red, for example. So very different. But visual attention, what are people looking at and what don't they see? Then we look at two other metrics which are emotional metrics. So you have arousal, which is the intensity of emotions. It's the same as when your heart starts beating, racing, sweat in your hands, like when I went on this stage and you feel a bit nervous or something like that. Then your arousal would go up. And you can measure that directly on the brain instead of doing it on your skin or anything like that. That means that if I'm on a website and I'm shopping, unless, again, my girlfriend looking for shoes, I'm sure she's super aroused while doing that. But a normal person shopping, it could be anything, they might not show physical arousal in the same way. Not as much when hands and heartbeat races and so forth. But this can actually go down to the granularity and actually look at how does it work and how doesn't it work. But it doesn't show us if it's a good or bad emotion. Therefore, we have the motivation system, which tells us the valence of an emotion. So it can tell us if people feel avoidance or interest. So it can actually tell us if we make a certain page or a certain application, if people would be interested in using it, going away from it, wanting to come back to it. You can scan that and you can understand that. And finally, very important for the technical world that we're going into digitalization and the digital sphere, cognitive load. This is a huge thing that happens when we're on our smartphones or on our computers. Our brain is not made for smartphones. It's not something genetically that we're used to. It's not something that was there from the beginning of time. It's something that we have to get used to. And it takes a lot of energy, a lot of processing power. And that means that if we put too much information in a little screen, you will lose people. People will feel stressed, people will feel annoyed, and people will not come back to it. And that's also why I'm going to show it a bit later, but coming with advertising in the wrong context can really cost you a lot. So cognitive load, how much information do you have to process at one time? I just wanted to show you that it's not only within e-commerce or retail, it's also within innovation. Everywhere where the brain is really being used, this is something that can help us understand, will people adapt to what we're doing? Will people use it? Will people like it? Finally, I just want to go through one study, a few small videos. We did a study with PostNord last year, where we were testing how people respond to a physical sales paper versus a banner on a computer or a banner on a mobile phone. We were using several different brands and several different versions. I'm just going to show you from one brand today. And it's just one person that we're looking at. So it would be on the top, you have a video of the eye tracking. There'll be a red little dot that jumps around. That's how our eyes do all the time. And then we have a graph underneath, which is green and blue. Green is motivation, as I told before, the valence, so approach avoidance. And the blue is cognitive load, so how much information do we have to process? If we are above the midline with the green, it's a very positive response. If we're below, negative response. The blue, if that goes above the top line here, that means that we go into this overload, the unconscious stress. And as you can see right away, when we give this person the sales paper here, it's just the back of it, but still it's a lot of information. But that's what we want to bring. We want to tell them, hey, we have so many prices that are so low, so many products that are so cheap because of sales or because of offers. But you can see right away, peak in motivation, interest, and a high peak in cognitive load. Where to look, what to look for. It's difficult in the beginning with something like this, but let's see here. As you can see here, the red dot jumps around, and you saw the green drop all the way down, the blue begins to drop, and then you see the green build over time. That means that in the beginning, this person would be like, whoa, that would be the feeling. Almost, you would see the person's head do like this. That's how precise it is. But you can see that over time, it builds an interest, builds an approach, an interest in the products. And the cognitive load goes down to being processed in the right way. Then if we do the same on a computer, which is a banner, you'd see a negative response in motivation. You'd see a processing of the cognitive load, but it drops into boredom. Still negative, negative, negative. Now it peaks. What's happening? The person finds out how to close it. Okay, this is serious. This is what happens. If you walk into a person's space while they're searching for something on a TV website or something like that, and it pops up in their face, you're not going to have a positive association that they memorize your products and brand. You're going to have a negative avoidance behavior because you don't want to break their space like that. You need to be very careful with your advertising like this. But as you can see, whenever we can find our way out of it, we're happy. Finally, I want to show you a phone. And I think this is extremely exciting, or maybe not exciting, but interesting. If you look at the cognitive load, this is how it feels being on a phone, constantly. This is why you can't walk with your phone and see what's happening around you. It takes every single part of your brain's processing power and put it on the phone screen. That also means if you do something wrong on this screen, a very little thing that you do wrong can cost a lot. For example, here you can see the interest in the beginning, but then a huge drop in motivation. And that is in the second that the person tries to turn it around. And it doesn't turn right away, so it works weird. And then he turns it back, and it doesn't work again. Then he gets working on it, and he tries to scroll down. So he's building again, tries to scroll down, and he can't scroll all the way down because it's not fit for the screen. And again, negative response. So little needs to be done on a phone before you can really overload people and make them feel frustrated, make them want to leave the site. That's also why it's so important, at least on a mobile phone screen, to keep the information low and only bring what you need to bring. That's pretty much everything I wanted to talk about today, is how we use neuroscience and how it can be applied to these kind of things.
You know me by now, I have all these practical questions. At what level is the software ready, or softwares on the market ready to be plugged into, say, e-commerce platform to actually direct the page views?
So
and
are you
to
thinking
direct the
like
content
in kind of an AI machine learning way?
How far away are we from actually using this in practice?
So this can be used already now in practice, but again, it cannot be used in live time. It couldn't be someone sitting with it, and then we know if a person goes in, then it would change the website for their preferences. But I don't think we're far away. Whenever we connect this correctly, the knowledge that we get from people and their brains correctly to the machine learning and neural networks, then we can suddenly generate a website which is actually personalized to a person.
Because that would be my next question. When we can understand what the user or the customer really wants, how do we develop the content accordingly to those needs or those preferences? Because that's to get the insights is one step, but then you have to understand how to cater for those needs.
For sure, and we've done that already now, but it's over time. It's not like a one thing, then you test your website and then you know, okay, now it's perfect. It's not how it works. People change over time, we change over time, and we need to follow how people change over time. And we need to learn from that change. And we have been able to, with those learnings and predictive models, been able to help companies already before they start developing. They know what to do and what not to do. And those kind of barriers are really good to have and know. Like, if we bring in this color with this color, we generated a negative response. Let's not do that. If we bring in sharp edges compared to more round, it doesn't work, or something like that. And it depends so much on the brand.
So it's built into the design specs, you're saying? That's
So
it
normally
needs
we
to
would
be early on, those insights.
It depends. It could also be that just testing a final website, and then you'd see, again, because we have the eye tracking and the EEG synchronized, we can tell exactly how people respond in the second they look at your brand, or they look at search button, or they look at something else. And if we can see a certain part of the page is actually generating this wrong response, if you'd say it like that, then we can make changes to that to optimize the website, or whatever it could be.
What, from your perspective, I mean, you're working with this all the time, and your competence level is obviously higher than ours. But what are the obstacles, or what are the challenges ahead in order to actually accelerate the work that you and your team are doing? What are the difficult areas?
I think the difficult areas right now, or I wouldn't say difficult, because it's just time, but it is to get it smaller, easier to use, and even be maybe a part of an everyday Fitbit that you're wearing, that you're actually wearing a small brain scanner or something like that. That tells you whenever you feel a bit stressed. It connects to another data stream that we can have all the time, and things like that. So that's kind of the future in my vision of how this can be used.
The challenge of capturing the data.
So the challenge is more bringing the machines down size, making so the hardware, the knowledge, the software, and everything is out there and being developed, but the hardware size just needs to be brought down.
But we see miniaturization trends in every area, so hopefully
it will
we'll
happen.
see it here as
For
well.
sure.
Cool. You'll be around, right? Because you're over in the blue booth.
I'll be around.
During the break now, we can come and talk to you and have more questions.
For sure.
Yes. Mike Storm, ladies and gentlemen. Thanks for being here.
Thank you.